The Drive-In Christian Church was born, we like to say sometimes, in the mind of Glenn Murdoch in 1952. Glenn was the senior minister at the First Christian Church over on the mainland, and he went to his board in 1952 and asked for permission to come to what was then the Neptune Drive-In Theater and began having services for the tourists and people who were on the beach. The board, and the chair of the board specifically, we've read it in the minutes, said this is the dumbest idea that they'd ever heard of. No one would ever come over to the shores and go to church at a drive-in. In 1953, Glenn went back to the board and he said, look, I have time on Sunday mornings. That is my own time before we have worship here. I'm going to try it. I'm going to go over to Daytona Beach Shores and I'm going to try to have a service at the drive-in. And the very first Sunday, after a little bit of advertising, not a lot in those days, they had 80 people who came to church that Sunday. By the third Sunday, they were worshiping 300 every Sunday, and Glenn's foolish idea became a church. And they would set up a little tent and a pulpit on top of what was then the projection booth. Sunday morning they would come in and they would have church, and the church began to grow and grow. In 1956, the theater here in the Shores was owned by Paramount Pictures. And so they put the church up for sale. And there at that time were about 400 members of the church, and they cobbled their pennies together, took out a mortgage, and bought 12.75 acres on the beach side for $18,000 and became the church. One of the first things they did was they took a 9-foot mermaid off the top of the old theater sign. They left the theater sign up for a little while longer. They also had a lease where they had to show movies. So from 1956 through 59, they still showed movies here on Friday and Saturday nights, and the members of the church would come down and they'd clean up again. Then in 59, the lease ran out for the movies, and they began the process of taking down the screen and building the church as it's constituted today. There were those 80 members of the First Christian Church who were actually the charter members of this church. We have grown from those 80 to now, in the year 2008, we have 1,150 full-time members. We have about 230 associate members, and the church is still going strong. The first actual budget they had was in '54, and their first budget was $12,500. And that was just to cover expenses. Glenn was still being paid as the minister of First Church, so they had absolutely no staff at all. That was just the first budget. Our budget for the coming year is pushing $450,000. We're a member of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ as a denomination, and we're very active in the community. We have a lot of mission support that we do. We're the largest single supporter of Halifax Urban Ministries. 2 times a year we have massive food drives to gather food for the homeless. We take 1/10 of every dollar that comes in here. It's actually now 1/11 of every dollar that comes in here, and we give it to outreach and to missions, in addition to things like Halifax Urban Ministries locally. We support overseas missions. We support 14 colleges of our denomination, 6 seminaries of our denomination. We do a thing here called Helping Hand, where we help people locally in the community ourselves if they're up against it with a budget and they can't pay their electric bill and things like that. I'm the third pastor here. The founding pastor was Glenn Murdoch, and then the second pastor was Wallace Pomplin, and I came here in 1995 and have been here ever since. Our priorities are basically biblical based. It's still go ye therefore into all the world and preach the gospel and baptize people in the name of Jesus Christ. Our secondary priority is to have an impact in the community of Daytona Beach Shores. We have this wonderful partnership with the city. I have never been involved in a community that is so involved in the lives of the citizens who are here and who care about the quality of life and how they do. The old saying used to be, life is better here. I think the leadership of our community has been outstanding over the years I have been here, and I watch as they do things for the betterment of the people. If I had all the money in the world and could do anything that I wanted to do, I would probably do everything I could to help those in our community who are down and out and need lots of problems. As for the church here itself, the only thing we would like to do is invent a cure for fire ants, because there is not a cure for fire ants. And when you're an outdoor church and people get out to greet one another and you see them slapping their ankles and doing things like that, it's amazing. Our biggest problems you don't find in an indoor church.